Beautiful. It really was. Today's service was inspired by a conversation I had with a congregant. I'll tell you more about that later. But I had thought I was going to preach this in February and didn't, and rewrote the entire thing from the beginning. I just deleted and started again. Because I think we're in a moment, and I think there are things to talk about and things for us to think about, and I am looking forward to starting a conversation today. Let's begin. We begin our time in a spirit of welcome. We welcome each other to our time of worship. We welcome the stranger, the widow, the orphan. We welcome those who feel abandoned, alone, afraid. We welcome those parts of ourselves that feel like strangers and widows and orphans, that feel abandoned, alone, and afraid. We are here together, one body, one community. We begin our time in a spirit of welcome. Please rise in body or spirit as we light our chalice. We'll begin by singing together.
The spoken words are in your program. Please join me. We light this chalice, the flame of our heritage. May it ignite hope in our lives, in the community, and in the world. Now let us sing together our opening hymn, Let This Be a House of Peace, found in your teal hymnal number 1054. You may be seated. Please join me in reciting our unison affirmation found in your bulletin. Unto the Church Universal, which is the depository of all ancient wisdom and the school of all modern thought, which recognizes in all prophets a harmony, in all scriptures a unity, and through all dispensations a continuity, which abjures all that separates and divides, and always magnifies humanity and peace, which seeks truth in freedom, justice in love, and individual discipline in social duty, and which shall make of all persons one beloved community. Unto this church and unto all its members, known and unknown throughout the world, we pledge the allegiance of our hands and hearts. Now is the time in our service that we greet one another. We greet each other on Sundays as a part of our liturgy. We turn to our neighbor, strangers, or old friends, and welcome each other to our shared space. It's our way of saying that our spiritual path is communal, relational. We're in this together. It's not just friendly, it's how we ground ourselves in this space with each other. In that spirit, please greet your neighbor. I have a tickle. How nice it is to greet each other. How easy to lose track of time and forget where we are. Let's settle in for a moment. Find our seats again. Friends, can you hear me all right? Yes. It's as if the microphone is working? Just making sure. Okay. In a moment, we will have a chime and a time for prayer. But first, let's take a moment to acknowledge what is happening in the world. Our service today, Turn the Other Cheek, is about violence and nonviolence. And these are violent times. We are struggling with these questions in a time when the earth is literally buckling beneath the strain of our presence. We worry not just that things are unwell in our home, planet Earth, but things are unwell between us, Earth's children and siblings. We bicker and quarrel among each other as if there were nothing better to do. These are difficult, scary times. It is not unreasonable to be afraid when the times are scary. I join you now as a person just like you with my fears, worries, and physical difficulties. Let us now enter a time of prayer. Let us pray. Breath giver, ancient listener, in the presence of your wisdom, age, depth, we are young, tiny creatures. We have gathered from our varied and hectic lives from every time and place to find this moment with each other, with you, outside of our time and our space. Join now our thoughts to yours as we witness our place as full members in the interconnected web of all being. Fill us with your vision, your joy, your hope, as we bear witness to one another and bring our full selves to shared understanding. Life giver, ancient healer, you are the gift at the end of all suffering. Hold us now in our frailty and our tenderness. Hold all that we bring, all that we feel, and call these feelings holy. Our sadness, our fears, our happiness and curiosity. Tend now both to our aching bones and our wandering thoughts, that we find ease and peace in this moment together. Settle our hearts, steady our breath, as we tend to the grief in our hearts, in our city, in our world. Love giver, ancient artist, weave now our thoughts and needs into your braid. We come to you as people with thoughts and concerns for ourselves as well as for each other. We lift in prayer both aloud and in the silent spaces of our hearts those standing in the need of prayer today. For whom do we pray? We pray in particular for David Schroeb and his healing, for Judy and her healing, for Chad and his grief, for Katya and her grief. We lift those named here in this space, both silently and aloud, to you, Mother of Life, that you nourish and care for all your precious children. Breath giver, ancient listener, hold space now in our hearts for yourself, now and as we go from here, that this connection may be ever present and never broken. Be the strength in our bodies that we need to be our full selves in this world, to enjoy the full life you offer to us. Guide us towards ourselves and each other. You, who are known by many names, we lift our prayers. Amen, and blessed be.
Good afternoon. Am I sounding good to y'all? You can hear me? Great. We're doing a service today on nonviolence. And we live in a violent world. I'm going to talk about a story of violence in my own life, content warning. And it's hard to not talk about violence when we're talking about nonviolence. And I remember sharing this with you a couple of months ago, but I'm going to tell the story from a different perspective. Let's see if I can. Visible? Good? Okay. We're still not hearing well? Hold on one moment. I'm trying to make sure I've got it for the folks in the back. How about now? Good. Better? Yeah. I'll talk slow. There we go. Is that better right there? All right. So I'm not going to move from this spot because of AV, audiovisual, and I'm not going to turn my neck much so you can all hear this microphone. Not all microphones are built for all people. Okay. So some of you know I grew up with a lot of violence in my life, bullying and assaults in that degree. And I had a bunch of stories about why that was happening. I'm not going to go into detailed specifics because not everyone want to hear that. But think about when violence happens in your life when you're 8, or you're 14, or you're 20-something, or you're 30-something. You're a kid or a youth or an adult of wherever you are in your development. And you're going to think about those moments as an 8-year-old, as a 14-year-old, and you're going to have to reflect on them again later in your life. And as a kid, you make certain kinds of assumptions. It's about me, it's my fault, all of these things you can kind of imagine and put into there. And you can get stuck with that one story, and that can carry you throughout your life and never interrogate it. And there's a threat, there's a danger in a single story. I'm not going to do it right now. Oh, look, I moved a little bit, sorry. It's amazing I'm not moving my hands as a Jersey boy Italian. This is really incredible. There's a threat in a single story. There's a TED Talk out there, you're welcome to Google. I'm forgetting the speaker's name now. But it's called The Threat of a Single Story, or The Danger of a Single Story. And I talked about this a few weeks ago as a gay man after we had a non-binary teenager assaulted who later died. And that's where I talked about it before. And that's one kind of way that story can resonate. Another way it can resonate is I met a lot of those guys that attacked me who were my friends later in life in the gay bars. Homophobia is something we do to ourselves and the people around us. I couldn't necessarily understand that as an 8-year-old. I couldn't necessarily understand that as a 14-year-old. But as I grew up, I carried that rage in me. Maybe you carry rage in you too. Maybe the world has thrown so much your way that rage is a logical and intelligent survival mechanism. I'm not going to tell anyone that that's not appropriate. I don't know your story. I do know that if you're in a place of risk, come to me, come to the clergy, the ministry team. We will help you as best we can. But the threat of a single story is I could have wet my life with the first lessons I had as an 8-year-old or as a 14-year-old. Some of you don't know that I grew up in a black and brown community, and so my assailants were often black or brown. Rayshawn and Troy. There was a white guy in there too, Shane. And I remember those names, and they carry with you. They stay with you. And I could have never seen those guys in the gay bars later. And I could have taken a story as an 8-year-old and said, wow, are all these people of color attacking me? And I could have made a story about that. But that wasn't the real story. There's more than one story there. And I could have stayed in the place of rage. which I did until my 30s. And it changed my personality. I wasn't who I am now. I had to, at some point, say, that is not going to work for me. It's the old forgiveness model, right? We talk about forgiving. And I wish we had a word in English that would explain that forgiveness is not always about saying what the person did was right or is over, but that they're just not going to be living in your brain anymore rent-free. And for me, that was feelings of rage. And I didn't want that, so I had to let that go. And I think about that in life in general. There's always going to be multiple stories in the hellscapes we live in. And we live in a world of violence right now. And so Reverend Peggy, in a little bit, is going to answer all of our questions about violence and nonviolence. But I want to leave you with a tension. Pacifism is a complicated word. And living it out in all our ways might be an answer. And maybe the answer is you need to stop what's happening to you now and get out of a situation. But it could also be our cycles. It can be an answer to not carry the harm forward to tomorrow or not carry the harm forward in a generation. I don't think the answer is easy. I invite you to join us in song. I can't tell if my mic is on. I invite you to join us in song.
Open the window now.
Yes, thank you. Church doesn't only happen on Sundays. Church is who we are in the world and how we connect all through the week. We don't announce everything that's happening, so reading our weekly email or checking the website is the best way to stay in touch. Here are a few things for you to note this week. On Monday, as in most Mondays at 5:30, I host a conversation on self-care. It's on Zoom, again, Mondays at 5:30. This Thursday, our Say Hello To series will feature our own Reverend Jude. Please join us. Our anti-racism action group is meeting on Saturday at 11, also online, and all are welcome. April 28th is our traditional Passover Seder. 2 weeks, I think from today, is that right? 2 weeks from, yes, okay. 2 weeks from today. We have a sign-up sheet in the back for those who want to attend. We are limiting it to 15 people because our space this year is small. Please sign up early. Our ushers will now pass a plate for our donations. We're very grateful for your presence, for your willingness to be a part of building this dream we dream about, this world we dream about, And we're always grateful for your financial support. Thank you for being with us today.
As I said earlier, this sermon was inspired by a phone call I got from a congregant in the fall. In light of some act of violence and the fact that I can't remember which one says something about how many of these there have been, but in the light of whatever it was that was happening, they wanted to know why nonviolence is being touted. The question wasn't specific to Community Church with our longtime commitment to nonviolence, but we were implicated in her question. She wanted to know why, as a Black woman, she was supposed to respond to violence with nonviolence. Why, she asked, were Black people constantly being told to turn the other cheek? I could do a whole exegesis on the term turn the other cheek, which is biblical and credited to Jesus. It doesn't matter, though, what it meant at the time. Today, the term is used to mean don't strike back. So I think it's fair to give you a little sense of my own history here. When I was in college, I had a completely transformative spiritual awakening, a deep and profound falling in love with all of life, all of it, flowers, trees, ducks, people, every person, all of them, everyone I saw, and the God who held us all together. I felt connected to and responsible for everyone, and not responsible in a way of duty, but really in the way of love. I wanted to care for everyone, everything, all of it. I switched from being a psych major to a religion major with a concentration in liberation theologies. I also picked up a second major in peace studies, which is interdisciplinary, and it includes political science, theology, philosophy, sociology, and economics. So the combination of academic paths and my own deep love for the world made nonviolence the only option in a world so riddled with indifference and hate. That instinct was supported by the wild success of nonviolent campaigns waged by Gandhi and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Having studied both in depth, I felt confident that nonviolence was the means and the goal for social movements and the way to achieve power where that seemed impossible. So when I applied for this position, I didn't know the history of this church or the very difficult stands taken during both world wars. I learned more about that when I was a candidate meeting with the search committee, and I was given the question, it was done very casually over dinner one night, should the US have fought in the Second World War? This is a favorite question to ask pacifists. The person asking often has a sort of gotcha quality, right? The whole question, because the moral implications of not fighting are apparent, right? 9 million people were systematically murdered in concentration camps, and many more were tortured. Obviously, we had to do whatever was necessary to stop it, is the context for that question. And I actually think the answer is too complicated to respond to in this yes-no format. The format it's always posed in. It's a yes, no, and I would say it's not a yes, no, it's a how much time do you have kind of answer. But there's another way people like to play gotcha with pacifists. They ask, what would you do if someone broke into your home and was threatening your life? Wouldn't you stop them, even with a weapon if you had it? And the first time I heard this question posed, the respondent was my mentor and teacher, and she said, well, I hope I would be more creative than that. She even offered that in the moment, to save both their souls, she might let someone kill her. And I accepted that answer at the time. I'll say that I later realized she didn't have children. But I know that was real for her. I happen to know that she was robbed just about the same time. She had been swimming, and her locker was opened, and everything of value had been taken out. And she saw the two girls who did it, and she was walking down this long corridor to confront them. But as she was walking and she was getting closer, she was overtaken by love for them. So that when she got there, she simply said with gentleness and sincerity, I hope you found what you need in my locker. Consider it my gift. So I tell you that story because I know that were she confronted in her home, she would in fact seek to save both souls by not fighting back. But would we all? And should we? Is that the most moral response to someone invading our homes seeking to hurt us? Is it the most moral response on the street? Is nonviolence righteous or absurd? So one of our most celebrated ministers, Reverend John Haynes Holmes, minister in some capacity here from 1906 till his death in 1964, announced his pacifism before the U.S. entered World War I. On April 3rd, 1917, he preached a sermon he titled, "A Statement to My People on the Eve of War." He preached it right on the corner of 34th and Park in our old church. And in it he declared, and I apologize for this masculine binary language that was common in his time, he said, "Therefore, I would make it plain that so long as I am your minister, this church will answer no military summons. So long as I am priest, this altar shall be consecrated to human brotherhood, and before it shall be offered worship only to that one God and Father of us all, he who hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell together on the face of earth." At the time, churches were being asked to become armories, storing weapons to be used in war. He refused. The soon-to-be renamed community church agreed with him and reiterated for him and for themselves that he was their minister and moral leader. He was willing to leave if the congregation wanted, but they did not. In fact, the church grew in both numbers and faith. There are many ways to approach the question of violence and war. The just war theory tells us that the war in Ukraine is just. The Israeli attack on Gaza, though, does not meet the criteria at this point. I can outline that for you sometime if you want. The just war theory was written by Augustine, who thought there needed to be a way to justify war in some circumstances because theoretically Christians were pacifists. As the Roman Empire collapsed and danger abounded, Augustine outlined the ways to engage war morally. His theory has been adopted, if also debated, around the world and through time in a way that I am sure he could never have imagined. Pacifism has been a constant strain through the centuries, with many specific examples largely grounded in religious and spiritual traditions. Gandhi codified it and wielded it to great success. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, using his example, transformed our own country as a result of his work. So all of this leads to our member asking why we seem to hold the moral expectation that Black people shouldn't fight back. Really, that no one should fight back. That not fighting is the spiritual and righteous way. As a white person, as a person who has at times been passionate about nonviolence, the question has become a charge or a call to find a better, thicker, more satisfying answer. Resisting the temptation to make this into a lecture and not a sermon, I will nonetheless try and put this question into a little bit of context. Henry David Thoreau's essay, Civil Disobedience, was foundational for Holmes, Gandhi, and King. In it, Thoreau outlines his general philosophy about government, which essentially assumes all governmental systems are corrupt and designed only to serve themselves. He saw war as an arm or a tool for that corruption and refused to participate, going so far as to be jailed for not paying his taxes, a protest quickly interrupted by a friend who paid the bill in his absence. Thoreau wrote the essay as a way of calling people to action to end slavery. His framework was the understanding that slavery was legal, that government created and maintained laws, and that those laws themselves were immoral. The moral response is non-compliance to the law. It was the concept of non-compliance that resonated with those who were influenced by his writing. And to be clear, though, Thoreau's stand on nonviolence wasn't so simple. He had a general stand against violence, but he also supported the abolitionist John Brown, who did take up arms. Thoreau was active in the Underground Railroad. His commitment to noncompliance was to help people disobey the unjust laws that kept humans enslaved. He saw nonviolent resistance as a powerful tool, but not the only one. Gandhi read Thoreau and adopted the English name for his movement. He said that he couldn't find a way to translate satyagraha, which is an Indian term, into English for his oppressors to understand. So he called it civil disobedience. Satyagraha is more complicated, though. It translates more closely to the word truth. The truth it reveals is of our radical interconnectedness. In Hinduism, all beings are of the same body. We live in an illusion of separation. Violence against your neighbor is violence against yourself. Civil disobedience makes sense insofar as it advocates resistance to immoral systems. It doesn't, in the way it was imagined by Thoreau, address harm to individual people. For Gandhi, though, there is no difference. We cannot harm others without harming ourselves, without harming the whole of which we are all part. And the power of the movement he created required several things. One was that people he was resisting were themselves concerned with morality. They saw themselves as acting on behalf of the law and government, which they considered a moral choice. And second, they needed people willing not to comply with immoral laws. And third, his movement required witness, bystanders, who themselves had to make choices about which side appeared most moral. So the idea was to resist immoral laws enforced by moral people, with others watching so they could see the immorality of the law themselves. Not fighting back was a critical part of the strategy. If people fought, they'd be blamed for the harm done to them. King adopted the same stand, and he did it in the time of television. Gandhi relied on newspapers to tell the story, but King could get his story told on the evening news, watched by millions of people. He trained his followers not to resist anything visited upon them, so that there was no way onlookers could see any of what was being done to them as justified. Others might at first think breaking the law meant you were asking for harm to be done to you, but when witnessed over and over again, people begin to question the law itself if the existence of it leads to violence. That's how we get all those images of people just sitting at lunch counters, not resisting. King, in the Christian context, grounded his own teaching in love. Rather than leaning into the Hindu notion of satyagraha, King leaned into the teaching of Jesus, to turn the other cheek, to let yourself get hit, committing ourselves to a life of building the beloved community where everyone is included, even those we currently hold as enemy. But when I got that phone call in the fall, the congregant wasn't asking, how do we change the system or how do we build a movement? She was asking when she, as a wife and mother and black woman, when she gets to fight back, who's going to tell her she can't do whatever she needs to do to stop the violence against her people? And as a white woman, it is not going to be me. But as her minister, I will offer this warning. We do not only hurt the other person when we fight back with violence. This isn't a winner-takes-all game. The trauma of war is real even when you're on the winning side, even when your war is just. Our profound interdependence is real. Our interconnection is unsevered, even when we hurt someone, even when we are protecting ourselves, our lives, and our people. The life of love is one of sacrifice. I wish that wasn't true, but the evolution of the human person is not yet complete. We are violent, greedy, xenophobic. To live in this world is to bear the injustice of it. Whether we seek to take advantage of that injustice to our own benefit, or we pretend it doesn't exist, or we absorb it feeding our own resentment, or we join others to organize ways to dismantle it, we are part of this broken world unable to escape. We can take up arms, protect our beloveds, whether they be our children or strangers in another nation, but we will have to live with what that does to our own spirits. What happens when we create a world of us and them? What happens when when their violence begets our violence, and we fight and fight until all our blood runs together in the streets? We can choose the path of love, facing the consequences of our open hearts. We can witness to the truth, our real interconnectedness, our profound interdependence. We can organize, we can write and teach and inspire. We can live in deep care for one another. We can drink tea and laugh in spite of it all. We can hold each other tightly. We can resist. We can try out this theory that love wins, that love is more powerful than hate, that love is the answer. I don't know if it holds up in every circumstance, but it's not an empty promise either. Love is real, and she has claimed us even when we forget or deny her. In the end, there are no clear answers, no absolute directives, no wisdom that speaks to all people in all times, always leading us to justice and peace. There is only our conscience and the pain we are willing to bear for the sake of love. Because in the end, we are bound each to the other. That is our truth. And it's not just our souls we are here to save. Please rise in body or spirit. Let's sing together, We'll Build a Land, number 121, with some new non-binary language.
Hey everyone. There's a section in the song that says sisters and brothers. This is what I say all the time.
Say it again in the mic.
Oh.
I don't know if it goes there.
The power of the microphone. So to honor our non-binary brothers and sisters, the section in the song where it says brothers and sisters, we're going to change that to all kinds of people, to honor all kinds of people, which is what I love about community church.
Join me in the chalice extinguishing, which you'll find in your program. Thank you. Knowing how quickly the flame of truth may be extinguished, how easily the chalice of fellowship broken, let us be vigilant in faith, keep peace in our hearts, and may care for one another the watchword of our lives together. So our light goes out everywhere into the world. Our light goes out everywhere healing and hope are needed. Let us go in peace to love and serve this world and one another. It's good to be with you. It's a good song to stand to, just saying.